Welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. Today's topic is all about roast defects. It may not seem like a real encouraging topic to most of us, but it is a very important topic for all of us, especially the new home coffee roaster. We're going to identify what roast defects are and how we can prevent them here on the Virtual Coffee Lab. Thanks for joining me today. We're taking a closer look at roast defects today because it will ultimately help us make a better cup of coffee. And that's what it's all about. Really, the hobby is about having fun. It's about learning about the art of roasting coffee and drinking and tasting wonderful coffee along the way. That's the end goal. That's the end game. That's the end result, hopefully. So while we roast our coffee, it tells us something, either visibly or in the cup. And so we're going to take a close look at this list. Keep in mind that some of these things we'll be able to see right when it comes out of the roaster, and some of these defects will be identified in the cup. Okay, the first defect is tipping. Tipping takes place when you have used such a high charge temperature that the bean cannot absorb the heat quick enough, and it ends up exhausting through the ends of the bean. And you can actually see burnt marks on the tips on the ends of the bean. This will cause uneven roasting. It'll cause burnt flavors in your coffee, and ultimately you want to avoid that. So you need to lower your charge temperature. The second defect is scorching. Similar to tipping, when scorching takes place, the beans are touching the surface of the drum, and the temperatures are so high that the outside of the bean is actually getting burned. And again, that's a roast defect that will affect the flavor. But with both tipping and scorching, you run the risk of an uneven roast and ultimately having a bland cup of coffee, messing up your grinder if you haven't roasted your beans all the way through, or just really having kind of a burned taste in your coffee that you really don't want. All right, the next defect is underdeveloped coffee. So underdeveloped coffee is coffee that never really gets a chance to go through the full roasting process. The beans are dropped early. Maybe you're attempting to roast a light coffee, and all of the wonderful flavors that you're attempting to form through your roasting process don't take place. There's no caramelization or little caramelization for sweetness. The fruitiness isn't there because you've rushed through this phase and you are missing out on allowing the temperatures to develop these flavors and then drop the coffee. I developed a video called 3 Tips for New Home Coffee Roasters, and in that video I share some times and some percentages that'll give you an idea of how long you should shoot for maybe your middle phase or your development phase at the end to try to be able to form a lot of these flavors. So check that video out, it might be helpful. The next roast defect is not really a defect from your roasting style or roasting ability. It's more of a defect from the quality of the coffee that you purchased. So when the farm or when the producers are bagging their coffee, they should be grading the coffee based on size. So when we open up our greens, we should have coffee that's consistently the same size, pretty close to it. Sometimes they're a little bigger or a little smaller. But when you are roasting coffee and there's such a wide variety of size, very small, very large beans, you are not going to be able to get an even roast. And ultimately, you're going to have some coffee that's over roasted and some that's under roasted, or overdeveloped and underdeveloped. Defects that we just talked about. So just be aware that when you're getting ready to roast coffee, if you see a lot of variation in size, then you may need to pick through your beans and kind of separate those, if possible, into a couple of different roasts based on size. All right, there is one more defect to share with you, but I'll get to that in just a second. If you have noticed roast defects in your roasting, if you've learned from them, share those comments with me and for others to read. We've got people that are coming and watching videos and they're reading the comments and they're learning. They're learning about your grinders. They're learning about your coffee roasters. They're learning about how you roast coffee. It's not just me sharing what I've learned. You guys are helping me and you're helping others as well with your comments. So share your comments. All right, there is one more defect that I didn't mention, and that is that there are some of you who haven't subscribed to this channel. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Actually, there are some that haven't subscribed to this channel, and if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I really appreciate you being here. If you like what you saw, hit the like button. That tells Google that something good is going on here, and that'll help my videos show up more for other home coffee roasters that might be interested in them. Of course, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more videos. I'd really appreciate it. All right, the last roast defect is Quakers. Quakers are beans that didn't develop fully when they were growing on the tree. The cherry seed itself was underdeveloped, and so the way that it takes on moisture is different. It really can't take on moisture like the other beans that fully developed. So when you roast your coffee, you'll notice that your beans may come out brown, but there are several beans that are very light. All right, well, that does it for this video. Thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next week in the lab.
Let's go. All right. This time we're going to use the George Howe method for doing coffee testing. We're using a 14 grind setting on the Encore Baratza. 30 seconds. I'm going to be making circular swirls for 15 seconds and adding 65 grams of water. And it's the George Howe method. It's a pulse, drip, pulse, drip. And you keep doing that until eventually you get to 390. That's your end target. First you want to start with 65, and then you want 130, you want 195, 260, 325, and then finally 390. Yes, starting with 25 grams of butter at the 14 grind setting.
Smells syrupy.
Oh yeah, it does.
Smells very thick, a little sweet. It's a fresh spice cookie.
Okay, yeah. Might be the best day, for the Colombian that I've had.
Really?